Why does everyone has to be a manager and a leader?
Typically, managing people is considered to be a sign of progress. This is how the folk tales are written. When you show someone with authority in a movies, you'll show him as a boss. But to answer your question, the white collar working job etiquettes and culture of this country is only 20 to 25-year-old. I don't think individuals are building the career how people have built career in the modern society. I still feel it is still somewhere a hack, a jugaad, a shortcut, and a smarty pant attitude prevailing more. And I see a sense of complacency is kicking in. People right now are becoming very short-term focused, and I feel those people are doing a big injustice. Staying busy is a blessing, it's not a curse, it's not a punishment. The reality of modern way of building your career is that you will spend disproportionately higher time at work. And I feel if you have two versions, you are hypocrite. Somewhere, in my view, it's a example of being double standard.
You're also a very unorthodox, dynamic, and slightly impulsive founder. And that's something you're also working on. What's the wildest, most controversial decision you have made that made everyone question your sanity?
बड़ा tricky question है आपका.
Hi everyone, I'm Vaibhav Vardhan, co-founder and CEO of Inc42. Today I have an amazing guest and an amazing entrepreneur with me. I have Sandeep Aggarwal, founder and CEO of Droom today with me. Welcome Sandeep, welcome to the show.
Thank you. India is going through a, I would say, renaissance of entrepreneurship. I think, I came from a generation where there would be four type of local heroes. One will be a politician, one will be the cricketer, one will be the Bollywood, and one will be the industrialist who was born with a silver spoon in the mouth. But if you look at today, you pick up Inc42, you pick up newspaper, you pick up TV program, you see even movies. The reference points are from the industry which you, me, and thousands of others are building together, right? I came here 13 years back thinking that India is 6 to 8 years behind China and 10 to 12 years behind USA in terms of digital economy, right? And everything is going to soon happen, right? I was 7 years early. So whatever I thought will happen in 2011 to 2015-16 started happening, actually I would say probably around 2019-20. But it's, as they say, sooner it's better late than never, right? When I came here, India had only half dozen maybe nationally recognized startups and total wealth of 3 billion. Today, as per your own Inc42 data, and right, it's probably 150,000 startups, 118 unicorn, and 400 billion plus probably in wealth. And if I extrapolate, I feel that by 2032, India will create around 1.5 to 1.8 trillion in new wealth, while multiple wise 400 billion going to 1.5, let's say 1.8 trillion is 4.5 times. But where in the world can you find a one way of building companies and wealth which can create 1.4 trillion additional wealth? So I would say that and where in the world you can find any other country where 70% of the people are born after 1995. So I think if you combine these, I think
Yes.
that's why I feel it's really the renaissance of entrepreneurship in India, and never ever in modern Indian history you had this level of democratization where you can be born in middle class family, have a very simple upbringing, but if you dare to challenge the status quo, you dare to actually create a world class company too.
But the IT outsourcing boom and that wave, in the startup boom and startup wave, are these fundamentally different? Will they change fundamentally something on talent layers?
See, absolutely. See, in my view, IT services was, if I got a decent enough undergrad or sometime even 12th pass, I have a good English, I'm a good worker. I can now, unlike my father, I can make 25,000 to 40,000 rupees a month, which can give me decent enough living, right? So it gave youth that confidence, but it did not give youth a confidence that can I be India version of Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, or can I be the first 300 employees equivalent of Google or Microsoft or Apple, but here in one of the Indian company.
We never thought of building Apple and Google and the Reliance. That's what we always say, "Hey, Tata, Ambani to bade log hain."
That's right. That's right.
So you think the startup boom will change that aspiration?
See that it has already changed. That the democratization has probably already occurred. Right, the demo right now. See, it is again. I go back to it is all function of local heroes, because so many of local heroes have been created, and they all have three things common. They come from a typical middle class family background. They had an emphasis on education while growing up, whether they completed it or not, and they basically questioned. They challenged the status quo, and those three things is probably a large middle layer of India.
But we all, especially in India, lack leadership qualities, managerial qualities, delegation, negotiation, documentation, uh, and we never put emphasis on these qualities. We say, oh, you know coding, you know sales, you can do 15 crores a year, 20 crores a year, you know marketing, you know funnel building, great, you come. And you become manager of 20 people, but you've not managed a single person in your life. So do you think this eh, the way we put in our day-to-day life, sir, it's very derogatory. Like soft skills की तो कोई value नहीं है. So do you think this definition will change, this weightage will change?
See, it will change. See, thing is, for example, let's say traditional. How did the traditional India look like?
Hmm.
If you go to a sweet shop, the emphasis was on the end product, not its pricing, not its presentation, not its ingredients. It was just if you are, but it has already changed. Like in India, nobody talked about soft power a few years back. Like US soft power was one of the US soft power was or has been is Hollywood. You see 6 feet GI Joe, well trained Navy SEAL making an impact, right? So like nowadays I feel that I personally feel that I think while India on various aspects remain behind fully developed economies, but on the other hand it is catching up on various things, right? And to me, high speed internet, smartphone, and cheap data plan has almost worked for India what printing press worked in Germany or in Europe in 1450. After with the invention of printing press, a common knowledge was no longer limited to a prestigious universities of Europe, but they were available through a very low cost paper and printing to every nook and corner of Europe. That resulted into Renaissance, and that resulted into Industrial Revolution. So from that perspective, see, because I have three India in my mind. One is the India I grew up before I went to Silicon Valley. One India is what I saw after I returned here after 17 years, and India which I see now, especially last 3-4 years.
So I would say 4 Indias. One India you view from US.
That's right. That's right.
Right. So
That's right.
and just to touch on that note, and we've spoken about it. When you, I think 2011 you came back. So when you came back, like how did you find India? And I'm talking purely from a work point of view and the culture and the employees and the team building point of view, not from general point of view. So what was your biggest shocker when you first came to
See,
India?
single biggest shock for me was the work ethics, right? I'm not sure whether I may sound very harsh on this, but I remember in my early 20s, I used to run a small merchant banking firm, which was our family-owned business, and I used to go to Nepal, and we used to work with one or two ministries in Nepal, and I was shocked to see a lot of people will come at 2:33 in the afternoon at office, and by 4:30 they will be ready to leave. So when I came back to India to start Shop Clues, first 4 months, I'm not kidding, not mincing my word, India sounded to me like it was almost like deja vu how I felt
In Nepal.
going from India to Nepal. Right? Like I hired a contractor to do my office. He took the advance. My father warned me not to give the advance, and he disappeared. Right, anything which could go wrong actually did go wrong, and especially if you were not in this country, so your sense of risk mitigation is very different.
But I mean, I'll come to that later also. But since we are talking about it, you also started second company Droom after that, which is a unicorn also. Uh, what difference you saw in the team building, in the teams, in the culture, in both the companies? Because time has passed, right? Almost 7-8 years passed. So how did it changed?
See, actually, if I compare and contrast building the core team at Shopcluse versus the core team at
Droom.
Droom, um, I think in a hindsight, if I look back both events, I think I was lucky to have a team for Shopcluse which I identified while still being in Silicon Valley. In Droom, uh, it was quite an effort. It was quite an effort because I was already here for several years. While I now knew India enough to be dangerous, but on the other hand, creating team never comes easy. I don't think even Elon Musk, after creating multiple hundreds of billion worth companies, he can say, the team, in fact, he did struggle. We all know, even when he took over Twitter, he did struggle who would be the CEO, right? So creating a team is definitely very, very challenging.
And especially in Room, we see a lot of stories, and we spoke about it. You do a lot of these hackathons, right? And startup culture is very famous with hackathons in general. But your hackathons, I see a lot of bhangra dancing happening and a lot of games happening and people working. So even now, after 10, 12 years, you're still doing hackathons. Why? Why so much cultural elements in it? What do you achieve out of it? And what is the thesis of doing it? Like,
Right.
what is the ROI?
Right. See, you know, there was a old Silicon Valley's saying that a startup is built when everyone is sitting 3 feet away from each other and every decision is taken in 3 minutes, right? If you think about it, uh, startup company actually has a very less chance of succeeding because they don't have deep pockets. They don't have level 6 sigma 5 type of processes, mature processes. They don't have big rolodex. They don't have trust in the consumer's mind yet, and there are a lot of things they're doing it first time.
Yeah.
Yet they still they end up making it big. If that was not true, then we would still be ruled by Romans, and perhaps everything you consume in this country come from Tata, right? So how does startup make it? Like, as I said, everyone is 3 feet away and every decision is making 3 minutes. Hackathon kind of create that feeling again and again. While startup is still very different than a multinational or traditional business, but as startup also becomes more mature, in fact, I would argue that in the beginning, every day is hackathon. But somewhere, let's say towards when you have already done growth capital, maybe you have reached series C or D, you kind of, you are neither a startup
Not a corporate.
nor a corporate. So how do I saw it in Silicon Valley, the challenge for Google or eBay or Yahoo or Apple or Microsoft or you name any company, the challenge would be how long can we prolong that feeling of day one startup. Like Amazon has a saying about that day one feeling, right? But I think Amazon was smart enough to articulate that. But that is a challenge for everyone, right? So with hackathon, we are able to replicate the same environment, right? Also, the new people who have joined since the previous hackathon, we find them almost experiencing a quantum jump in their adaptation to the company new environment. You may be surprised why it is a sleepless nights, lot of work, right? A lot of fatigue, but people don't look tired. And if you have youth working, they actually love those kind of experience. And then, even with 100 people, there's absolute clarity that what I'm working on, what others are working on, and where together, whatever we all are working, taking us to. So that clarity is amazing.
And you mentioned lately, a lot of your leadership team is the one now which plans it, which puts together a lot of effort because you've created early frameworks and they work on that. So how does the leadership team approaches these hackathons, these sprints? It's like a 1 month exercise where they plan the agenda. How agile they are themselves? Are they on the ground? Are they on the floor?
So when it comes to hackathon, everyone has folded their sleeves. They are out there, from pumping up the morale by having a table tennis match to even taking out 2000 rupees from their pocket for a sport award, to someone walking in at 7 p.m. with 12 beers, right? Everyone is chipping in. Right? Everyone is chipping in. Typically, the planning is not. I think hackathon will defeat the purpose if there's a 2 weeks of planning. The longest planning we have done is probably maybe 4 days, and shortest is literally, I would say, just maybe 1.5 days.
Tell me some of the cultural ritual and practices because we speak about this and you have quite a elaborate notes and framework on that within your company, except hackathons, that help you build a strong team culture and also maintain it. Because I believe like hiring good people or bringing good people is one part of it. Ensuring their morale is high, maintaining their motivation, they don't feel fatigue. That's a different ball game altogether. So, a few of the rituals you follow or your leaders follow rather.
See, actually, we have roughly 50 documented employee engagement and morale building activities. The reality of modern way of building your career is that you will spend disproportionately higher time at work. Right? In my view, if you can align three things, do I get to learn every day? Am I working with the people I can call friends? And am I getting paid what I think I deserve? If you can align these three things, I think you have hit the home run in terms of how you can impact the lives of people who will be building their career at your company.
But in general, we see a lot of leaders. And when I say leaders, these can be managers, mid-senior managers, mid-management, up to senior layer. They are very good at their work, marketing roadmaps, funnels, sales numbers, targets, but they usually don't value these rituals, these adages, these frameworks a lot when it comes to engaging with their teams. Uh, did you think they adapting these kind of practices in their own ways will change their camaraderie and their outcomes, hence their team's outcomes altogether?
I have worked with three Fortune 5 companies, not 500, three Fortune 5 companies in their headquarters in United States, with two legendary founders, including Bill Gates and Chuck Schwab. One was the richest person, one is probably still the 20th richest person. And I saw how important was the culture of the company. Because you can have the people with different gender, different age, different upbringing, different education, different belief system, different orientation, right? But the common something which will tie you together will be the core values, competencies, culture, environment, and the things you do. Even when we grow up in a family, some of the silly and stupid things we did while growing up with our parents and siblings, we never forget them, right? So if the company where you are going to spend, let's say on an average, 8 hours per day for 40 years, why these things in my view are very, very important. And I find if I wear my formidable years of professional career of Silicon Valley and Wall Street, I think these are so underrated in our country.
And so these leaders were 30, 32, 35, 40, 30 to 40 mostly because as the age you reach at a leadership position normally, they should all emphasize and focus more on introducing such practices rather than only the hard skill as an outcome.
See, hard skill are very important. They can get you foot in the door. But if you really want to create an institution which is built to last, if you really have a dream of creating extremely scalable company, if you want to be known for the company which has a great culture, which has been a great training ground, then the softer skills matter a lot. Culture matter a lot. A company, the way uh, any individual's personality matters a lot. Same way, I think company and a startup has its own personality, its own identity. So those things matter a lot, and I feel that I feel that hard skills only create a sweat labor. Then there's no difference between having a 10-kilometer single roof, or someone who's manufacturing the iPhones and Samsung phones, and 20,000 people every day come, they change into a uniform, put their phone in a locker, and work and go back. But that is not how we are building the companies. We are building the companies where skill set, actually softer skills, actually can produce a tangible delta in favor of wealth creation, in favor of world-class product creation.
I call it digital labor mindset. We have become from physical labor, we have become digital labors.
Yes,
We're coming in, going back, but we are not applying our brains. And also, if I would request if you can change our lens from a company and startup to career. Now the focus is more on individual careers, right? So that's what I'm trying to figure out, how an individual should look at their career graph and growth graph, because these individuals are not valuing enough their own personality, the need to learn soft skills. They're saying कि मतलब we have been taught in college यार मतलब marketing आती है, that's enough.
See, I personally feel that any individual work for 40 years. I think every individual, while growing up at some time, would have dreamt or entertained a thought that I want to retire, I want to make shitload of money and retire by 35, maybe open a bar at Bali in a beach, or learn music or something. We all have that dream also. But as we get mature, we realize that in fact, staying busy is a blessing. It's not a curse, or it's not a punishment. So on an average, a human being work for 40 years. First of all, I would like to say that first 15 years, everyone should place emphasis on learning so that they can have exceptional earnings for the 25 years. Right? Second is everything which is taught as a good values, like creating being ethical, high work ethics, don't cut corners, learn from mistakes, and blow it. I mean, I can go thousands of these examples, but all those things are very, very important. And does not matter, you may have flat organization, you may have no hierarchy, no politics, but still you cannot have in a single company 200 CEOs. Even a three trillion the world has produced $3 trillion company, but guess what? They all have one CEO. And that CEO also needs 8 hours of sleep. He still needs to work out. He still needs to do his family, run his errands, and do everything. So, building a career for individual is, in my view, an iterative work, and it's a non. You are always a work in progress, right? You are always a work in progress. But I feel that like maybe it is a generational gap. But I feel that people right now are becoming very short-term focused. Secondly, I grew up in India where there was scarcity, right? When I was doing my undergrad, I would be like most of my friends would be thinking that can I even get a decent job, so that I can have a decent life, right? And in my view, in a modern world, you don't die from hunger, you die from indigestion. Now, India has a serious shortage of talent. And I feel that while India still does not have plethora of job, what you see in developed economy when the economies are strong, but getting a job, decent enough job, is no longer as challenging as at least my generation has seen, right? And I see a sense of complacency is kicking in. I give someone a feedback. If I have given a slightly hard feedback, although I think I'm very well trained in terms of how to give a feedback, constructive criticism, etc. Independent of my intensity of feedback, if I give a feedback, 50% chance that night that person is going to post a video, how to avoid working in a toxic culture. Then his his LinkedIn profile will change, where he'll say open for a change. And he'll make probably 3 to 5 calls to his buddies that I think time has come for me to change. Right? And I can tell you, when after my higher studies in the United States, I picked up the job. In my next 4 years, I had a super compassionate, kind manager, and I had a extremely demanding and tough manager. I had a manager who I thought was very intelligent, but I also had a manager who I thought was foolish. I also had a manager who was overly considerate, and I had a manager who were very cold and cut and dry. Yet, I always gave my 110%, and every feedback I received, actually for me, it was the most independent of how they butchered me and slaughtered me, and I trust me, and I received all type of feedback. I actually thank them, not just lip service, but from the core of my heart. And in fact, when I look at my journey, if I actually behave the way I see now, current youth is behaving, I don't think I would have created a career for myself, even 1/10 of what I have been able to do so far in my life.
So people's patience is weird off. There's no patience left. Very instant gratification in everything. No sacrifices per se they want to make, and yet they want to enjoy the rewards. But sometimes when I say these words, I feel like I am overthinking and I am not adapting to the new culture, but they are right.
See, we all do that. Thing is, look, the you know how there's a Gen X and millennial and Gen Z and so on, baby boomers. So when you are in one generation and you see other generations are dominating in terms of percentage of current population, you do tend to self-doubt that maybe it is me from another generation rather than, but that is not the case. Now, like, one thing I find very weird is you go to LinkedIn India. Most of the videos will be top 10 hacks, how you can get more vacation than is approved, or how to get higher raise versus what the company is willing to pay. Top 10 ways how you can avoid toxic culture. India LinkedIn is full of negative, cynical, trust deficit story at a workplace. Whereas, so I used to think that maybe time has changed. But then I said, let me see what my large circle of 1.5 decade plus in United States is posting. What is happening in LinkedIn in United States? It is still same. Still, the examples are how I build a great career, how my sacrifices took some time but it paid off, how the company I burned the midnight oil for rewarded me, right? So I think I personally feel it is not the generational gap, right? It is really, I feel the working etiquettes of this country, the white collar working job etiquettes and culture of this country is only 20 to 25-year-old. In Europe, this culture started developing in 1750 with the Industrial Revolution. Right? You go to Japan. I have been very fortunate to have multiple investors on my cap table in Japan. So that made me quite familiar with Japan. I frequently visit there. Japan never lost its traditional culture, but found a modern meaning to it. But everything you will consider as a old school is still being practiced. Right? So I sometimes wonder that if we are talking about Viksit Bharat in 2047, do we have, I think we have youth, we have large economy, consumption economy, lot of things at economy level which favor us. But when I compare my years in Silicon Valley and Wall Street, and when I compare of how I build my career, I find a gap. I don't think individuals are building the career how people have built career in the modern society in a developed economy in last 200 years. I still feel it is still somewhere a hack, a jugaad, a shortcut, and a smarty pant attitude prevailing more rather than hard work, sincerity, dedication, sacrifice, learning, feedback, etc. Gratitude. So I feel that is something is a gap.
What is that Droom hiring matrix?
Yeah. So Droom hiring metrics is just a very simple 2x2 metric. Uh, on one side we say, are you a Droom type? Yes and no. And on second side we say, are you fit for the job? Yes and no. So if someone is Droom type and fit for the job, both, yes, he's a must hire. Someone who is great for the job but not Droom type, we don't hire. Sometimes the temptation is very high. He's exactly has a skill set which we have been looking for, but is not a Droom type. Our view is that person actually will have an attitude issue and he will cause more damage to the company than his hard skills contribution. If someone is not fit for the job but Droom type, we will find another job for him, but we will, if we have an opening, we will not let that person go away.
So you would weigh attitude over hard skills
That's right.
in general.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't want to underestimate what we do for a living, but it's not a. In my view, after building 2 companies, I feel the real rocket science in a new age company is really the attitude. It's not the hard skills.
Any interesting story or anecdote when you hired a wrong person?
See,
What went wrong?
yeah. See, look, there. Between 2 companies, I think I probably might. I would have done at least 6 to 8,000 interviews by myself, and we have a lot of success stories of great hires, but we have so many of the bad hires. Typically, the bad hire, in our view, has always come in terms of our assessment whether he's Droom type, right? And I know I have mentioned Droom type several times, so let me quickly just say what is Droom type. Droom type is nothing but typically, if I ask you, what are the top 10 things you see, what makes someone an entrepreneur? So, are you passionate? Do you have a high energy? Do you take a long term view? Right? Are you go getter? Do you take no for you don't take no for an answer? You learn from your mistakes. You can work with ambiguity, require less handholding. So, wherever we had a bad hiring, typically
Not a fit.
if we demystified the or peel down the onion, we realize that perhaps the person tried his best to match with our assessment during the interview for whether he's Droom type, but he was actually not a Droom type. And that is where there's a clear pattern for us. If you are Droom type and there is a skill gap after the hiring, let's say you oversold your hard skills, I don't think the X will fall on you. But if you had a great skills, but you look like Droom type when we hired you, but you don't look Droom type, I think we will decouple.
And while we are on that topic, and we all face this problem as founders, at least I do. The way we are passionate, and we try to transform our energy and our thought process into our L1 layer. I usually feel the similar passion is not transformed in the L2s or L3s or L4s by the L1s. So how do you groom, first of all, your leadership team, and how do you train them to train the further team?
Yeah. So, I mentioned to you about core values, competencies, culture, environment, ethos, success factors, and personality attributes. So, above that, we have something called what we call it DPS, Droom People System.
Okay.
So, Droom People System includes 360-degree evaluation, feedback, and a career track, right? And again, I think everything is interconnected. We have always placed emphasis more on softer skills and are you Droom type, are you entrepreneurial type, more so. And if you have done that, then there are less instances of you taking out the blood from here and infusing in someone else, right? Because skills can still be developed, right? But if those things are the softer skills, or at least in my case, let's say are you a Droom type, in my view, it is like if someone does not have it, it's like a missing organ. And if you have a missing organ, does not matter how good are my roses, you will never be able to appreciate the fragrance, right? So that is why in our case, at least, we have suffered less from, I would say, maybe a Gen Z word, vibe check.
Very interesting. And people talk about FaceTime, on a founder level, and even on our team layer, people talk about my manager, my leader is not giving me enough FaceTime. So what is this definition of FaceTime in terms of grooming the leadership and leaders further grooming their teams for you?
I absolutely believe in FaceTime, and I absolutely believe that everyone has choice. They can work at 20 other places. and it is your responsibility to make sure they can do the best work of their life at your company. Right? So for us, it starts with that. So my job is to make sure that the people who report to me, whom I get to interact more often and see them maybe on a more regular basis, are set up for success. That also means making yourself very accessible.
A VP layer kind of a person in general in at Droom, for example, would be what? A 50 lakh to 1 crore range. I'm just trying to get some benchmarks and both from experience and from commercial point of view.
Yeah, so a VP at Droom, yes, could be 50 to 1 crore, but uh, uh, I would say more like 50 to 80 lakh. And 80 lakh to 1.5 crore would be, we may still call that person VP, but it would be more like a CXO who has maybe 18 to 25 years of experience.
And VP would be 10 to 15.
VP could be, if he's a child prodigy, super smart, always stayed in a 0.5%, then it could be 8 years on a low side. But yeah, I would say 8 to 15, 16 years.
So that's the average range.
Right.
Very interesting. And how do you ensure this layer from a VP to a CXO is, because I feel the challenge is this layer is not able to build the next generation of leaders. Do you think this is a gap or do you think this is not a gap? First of all,
Yeah. See, I think
because you can't be there for everyone. You cannot.
yes.
How do you ensure that part? That's the biggest challenge I feel.
It's absolutely is absolutely, it is not a easy thing to crack, and I by no means want to claim that we have cracked it. But my take is that ultimately you need to place emphasis on the processes, policies, and system. Right. So if you keep on placing emphasis on this, a lot of things will come together. If you are investing in the right people, again, I'm emphasizing more on a Droom type or entrepreneur type or softer skills rather than hard skills, then it will all work out. Right. And then, in one other thing which we look for is like 4 type of hunger. Hunger for learning, hunger for growth, hunger for impact, hunger for exposure. If someone has these 4 hungers, even if he has a manager who is not very caring and not thinking about his or her growth, that person will find his or her way. Right? Let me say, in my 13 years of entrepreneurial journey, I have 85% of the time, I have never taken an interview on hard skills. Right? I have never taken an interview on hard skills. I have always looked into the, I look for whether, when person is talking about himself or herself, the sparkle in his eyes. Right?
And very hard to define. It's very hard to define.
That's right. But I look for that, and more often, at least my experience is, those people more often work out versus not work out.
So can you help me understand how a manager, a VP layer and a CXO layer, how much % of their time goes in grooming and managing people versus actually doing some executional work?
So I have this framework. It is called SPEAK. But it is not speak with the ending with K, it is ending with C. So it is strategy, planning, execution, analytics, and corrective action. Right? And I literally have that for me, for the CXO, VPs, middle level manager, individual contributor, how much of their time should go into this. And let's say strategy, planning, analytics, execution, and corrective action is 100%. Right? At my level, it is almost like 25% in strategy, right? 25% in planning, right? And then let's say 20 in rest of the 3, right? Right? For the individual contributor, 0 to 5% is in strategy, right? And maybe 70% is in execution. But let me say this way, independent of title, roughly 10% of the time for anyone should go in planning and 10% goes in analytics. In Droom, these are necessary evils. Because if like for example, even for a programmer, in my view, if programmer has spent 100% time in coding, I don't think that product is great. I think the actual time in programming should be 40 to 50%. Remaining should be in strategy and planning and analytics and corrective actions, right? So that is how basically we're doing. And to answer your question, then corrective action and planning should also is a part which goes into terms in terms of grooming the people and training the people, etc.
So when a lot of people become managers and leaders, they come to the founders or the CEOs and say 30% of my time is going because the person is cribbing about their breakup, the light is not coming in their house, the water is not running, the traffic was late, and मैं काम करवाऊं या मतलब मैं उनकी पर्सनल लाइफ को मैनेज करूं, and they run away from listening. My belief is their problems are your problems and you have to listen. Half the time listening does the job. Would you agree, disagree, or how would you approach it?
Yeah. See, you cannot have, if someone is there physically present in office, but he's mentally and emotionally missing, he's not contributing. And if he's not contributing, you may be manager first time, you may be finding it hard to lend your ear to that person, but that ultimately it will start reflecting on your own work too, right? So I just wanted to tell you that we do have a very strong emphasis and compassion, and being considerate, right? So honestly, if my manager is saying that work is getting hurt because I have this guy or this person suffering from this, I think our default reaction would be you take care of that person first, because then he'll take care of the work, right? So that is how typically kind of
And every leader should be very much okay naturally to make this part of their life. Now also, there's a huge debate, especially lately, that for leadership, for anyone to become a leader wherever in their career they are, a lot of sacrifices are needed, right? Financially, mentally, physically, emotionally. Do you agree or disagree, first of all? uh, and like, are these sacrifices really necessary to reach a leadership position? Like, have you seen leaders who are making money, who are successful, who are famous, who have everything at their disposal, but their life has been a breeze, minus prodigies and minus exceptions?
Yeah. So actually, I think you cannot create a world class career. You cannot fulfill your dreams. You cannot create a world class company if you're not sacrificing. I don't think you need to. You need to. You are sacrificing for the heck of sacrificing.
Hmm.
But you think about it. Let's say when India launched Chandrayaan, ISRO, as far as I know, they are, again, a huge respect to them. But there's a government organization. I don't think you're getting ESOP on a successful launch of Chandrayaan.
Chandrayaan.
I don't think you get a special bonus. I don't think you get out of turn
Yeah.
promotion. But
Yep.
let me ask you a question. Do you think 2 months before Chandrayaan was launched, people came at 9 a.m. and went at 5 p.m.? Impossible, right? So in my view, you look at French Revolution, you look at Russian Revolution, you look at India freedom fighting, right? You look at behind any revolution or a great company or great innovation, you will always find following things common: burning the midnight oil, sacrifice, giving hard blood and sweat, right? Dedication, determination, right? Ups and downs, right? So even for child prodigy, I beg to differ, right? We have so much of child prodigy in our current era. Wouldn't you call like a prodigy, like wouldn't you call Bill Gates prodigy or Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk? Do they have time for everything? No, they cut corner. Mark Zuckerberg wear same set of colors of jeans and hoodies because that also helps him to save time, which he can now allocate at work, right? So I'm not. I don't think and my. I was very clear, and I say that even in my town hall meetings today also, that if you watch your clock, if you want to have everything intact in life, you want to go for hiking, you want to go for vacation, you want to have all those things, not at all passing judgment, but find a company which enables that.
Yeah, why not?
Right? Find a company which enables that to you, right? But but otherwise, there's no way you can have disproportionately higher return or a growth without sacrifice. Right? It is just not possible.
And do you think people are different outside and inside the office as a personality type?
Sometime when I see people having two personalities, one which is at their home or with their social circle in their hobbies and habits, and one at work, that actually honestly bothers me. And I remind people, I say that when I started Shop Clues or when I started Droom, it was not like that I slept. And before sleeping, I said, tomorrow I will wake up as a different person.
We're same.
And I will have more passion, more energy, more commitment, which I did not have until yesterday. In fact, I tell people again that I actually, unlike a 17 or 18-year-old college dropout, I was a late bloomer. As an entrepreneur, I started Shop Clues when I was in my mid-30s, right? So I had already worked with 6 companies for, 12, 13 years. And I had everything you can imagine: good manager, bad manager, compassionate manager, a jerk manager, intelligent manager, foolish manager. Sometime I got paid what I thought I deserved. Sometime I got paid far more than what I thought I deserved. Sometime I got paid far less than I thought I deserved. I still gave my 110%. Exactly how I would give my 110%.
Everywhere else.
Teaching my son golf, spending time with my spouse, looking after my parents, even having a fish tank and looking after the fish. Right? So for me, there's no version. And I feel if you have two versions, you are hypocrite. Somewhere it is called it is in my view, it's a example of being double standard.
And you see this happening a lot in the upcoming generation, not because they want to, but maybe
I see that a lot. And it's really, and I feel that those people are doing a big injustice to their upbringing, to their education, to their future career, and to the wealth, pride, and career they can earn. Because if you are dancing with a 3 beers down on a Friday in a dance club with a level of passion,
why can't you?
if you can bring the same at work, independent of how many headwinds you may experience, nobody can stop your growth. But unfortunately, actually, I don't see that.
We are hearing a lot of people say, I want to do strategy. And these are a lot of young professionals, right? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in work career. What is your take on I want to do strategy? Because I personally, as a founder, believe there's something called strategy. Of course, there's some part of it. It all boils down to hard work and execution. What's your take on strategy as a word, especially young early professionals?
See, my feeling is, I always noticed, and maybe because I spent, let's say, half of my professional career in US and half here in India now, I would say I see two India. And I see India living in fantasy and India living in fundamentals. Fundamentals is real India. So, and fantasy is what you like to, how you want to seduce your mind in terms of a delusion of grandeur or a great picture you have created in your head. Right. And if you look at culturally, see, like, sorry, but like, if you look at Bollywood, that makes you live in fantasy, right? But India culture in a few places is so much more dominated by fantasy. A politician will inaugurate a new stadium, right? And they will make everyone run, and they make a maybe small reel at photo. But does that stadium from tomorrow has enough electricity? Do they have water? Have they thought about coach? Right? They, no, but you had just captured that we inaugurated another stadium. So, so I think, there's a two parallel word. One is fantasy, one is fundamental. Fantasy guy is thinking about strategy, right? He's thinking about strategy. And thing is, because, a lot of things make it to India from Silicon Valley, we hear all the right, and but as they say, little knowledge is dangerous thing, right? So sometime without having fundamental demystification or peeling down the onion to the last layer, but embracing something, in my view, I call that as fantasy.
And you think a lot of people who are living in this strategy world are living in this fantasy world?
Yeah, strategy could be one fantasy, and then I even sorry, but I would say even lot of people are actually uh, becoming entrepreneur, because in my view they have fantasized that also, more of a fantasy rather than fundamentals.
Yes.
Right. So I feel that is something, because like I think that's a, I don't know whether it is more pronounced maybe in a current generation. I think it is.
Yeah.
Because a lot of their reference points are built with very famous universities like YouTube and Instagram, and extremely intense content like reels and short videos. But I feel that yes, ultimately, I think if I think about top 10 reasons why India will not be able to achieve a fully developed nation status, talent gap is one, but thinking in fantasy rather than fundamentals is another problem in my view.
Why should managers and leaders not run away from difficult conversations?
Uh, see ultimately, you know, uh, company has some kind of uh, setup, right? It's some kind of org structure, some kind of org design. There's a KRA, there's a KPI, there's a goal, there's a initiatives, goal, and you need to have a results and outcomes. So when do you realize the need of a feedback? When there's a gap.
Yeah.
And if there's a pattern, when you're saying that the time has come for this feedback to pass, like you need to communicate that feedback. I think you should not delay that, because that will not solve the problem.
And if you as a leader are not doing it, you are like, harder. You're like stopping your own career growth, right? Because it all boils down to you after in the end.
Yeah, sure. But thing is, look, like for example, let me give you like one example. I When I literally first 2 months after I came from United States to start Shop Clues, I remember Alok Mittal, who that time was a partner at Kanan Ventures, actually invited 3-4 founders, and he invited Hitesh Oberoi from Naukri, and we all were first-time entrepreneurs. And Hitesh already had a Naukri as a fully one of the largest new age companies of India. And Hitesh was very, I must like give him a compliment that he was very generous, sharing his learning and his experiences of building Naukri. And one of the things he told me was that, Sandeep, as a founder, you may meet someone and you have some opinion. Let's say you are working with someone, or you meet someone, you have certain opinion. Then in your head, that person is not working out, right? And as the time passes, that feeling has not faded away. It has in fact become slightly stronger. It is better to pull the plug now rather than later. Right? So for me, that stayed with me throughout my entrepreneurial journey two ways. One is, if someone is not working out, I would rather pull the plug sooner versus later. And second is the feedback. Right? We do have certain type of feedback training, etc. We also use a word like constructive criticism, right? And in the way age of Gen AI, even you may be you may be boiling, and you may have very very blunt and rude feedback, but with the help of Chat GPT, you can actually make it more constructive, right? But yes, I think that the problem is never solved if you are afraid of uh, confrontation or hard moments. Then I think you lack one or two skills for being a stern leader.
Very interesting. And just that takes me to the next question: does everyone have to be a leader? There's another perception in the market, right? In general, globally, if I'm not a manager, I've not grown. If I've not become a leader, I've not grown. Why does everyone has to be a manager and a leader?
See, because this is how the folk tales are written, right? When you show someone with authority in a movies, you'll show him as a boss, right? And typically, managing people is considered to be a sign of progress. But to answer your question, I don't think everyone has to be managing people or leaders. I have multiple examples where some people's uh, performance, they were awesome, but their performance significantly dipped after they started managing people. And in my view, where see, like typically you have 15-20 various departments, right? You can have HR, legal, finance, internal IT, office admin as a corporate services or staff function. You can have product engineering, design, etc. as a product type of function, and then you can have you can have marketing, sales, business development as a more of a line functions, right? Uh, whichever function you will find that people skills or softer skills are not necessarily the top 10 or top 3 or top 5 skills you need to be successful. There, actually making someone manager can actually backfire you.
Also, I remember in a lot of our conversations, you talked about three type of professionals. And this is an interesting one, if I can read it out for the camera. Uh, One, I would want to know 2 by 2 matrix to assess the parking lot candidate is the term you mentioned.
Yes.
And three type of professionals you mentioned were owners, tenant, good tenant and bad tenant. And then you mentioned about in parking lot or revolving door.
That's right.
So can you just help us demystify what is
Yes, sure. So in my view, again, independent of whether you have a title of founder, co-founder or not, in my view, uh, there are people who have a very high sense of ownership, and so long as they are working with you, they will give their hard blood and sweat. They're not going to cut corner. They are committed, and they are not second guessing. They are not double guessing, right? So that is, and they have a very high sense of pride and ownership. So that is the first type of person. There another type of person who says, I know I'm here, but I'm not here forever.
That's a tenant.
Right? That's a tenant, right? But, like, for example, I own one house in Seattle. For 21 years, it is on rent. And during those 21 years, I had 10 tenants. There was one tenure of 2 years where my house demanded the highest amount of maintenance and breakage and breakdown and repair, right? And no other time, right? So for me, I think one tenant was not so good tenant. So he did not treat my property as if it is his, right? But the other tenants, while they always knew that this is not my property yet, so their sense of ownership was not high, but they treated it as if it is theirs, right? And person in revolving door, see, revolving door or parking lot is not the destination. It's a temporary state, right? You can't stand in that revolving door
Forever.
and parking lot is
A
parking lot,
Yeah.
right? So, so in my entrepreneurial journey, I have always looked for owners or good tenants, and I tried my best to stay away from bad tenants, and definitely from
People.
from the people who are in a parking lot. Because people in a parking lot, actually, they are very tentative, they are very fickle-minded, they are very wavering. They will, anything happens to them, they will say that this is happening to me only in this company, with this boss, in this space, in this city. And for them, grass is always greener on the other side.
Also lately, and in general also, I've seen, especially people with employee mindset, talking about, I have not been given the responsibility of XYZ. But in the startup ethos, or in our culture, when I say our culture, the startup culture, we say your role is what you carve out. So how do you look at this part where people are saying, because you have not given me the responsibility, I will not work on this, versus someone else who is saying, I'll find the opportunity and figure out what I want to work on?
See, if you have this first kind of person who says, you have not given me the opportunity, so I will not work on it, I think, in my view, that person is to begin with is not a startup type, right? I know a lot of startup lingos and the words we use sounds cliche now, but yes, I think it is so true. Your role is what you carve out. If you are a kind of person who wants handholding, who wants everything to be given in a platter and needs to be reminded again and again that this is your and go and up and running with it, is not a startup type person. Startup type of person, actually, theoretically, that person does not even need a tracker and a KRA, right? He or she will just fold the sleeves and will do the work.
Yeah.
And like any, again, I think see, if and those are the people, people who are who are not complaining, who are not saying that this is not my work, hence I will not do it. If you look closely, they are the people who are carrying most of the responsibilities.
Interesting. Which startup would you love to poach leaders from? India.
In India, I would love to poach from primarily from product. Two type of companies I have a huge respect for. One is which are hardcore product and technology companies, and there I would say Zomato, Swiggy, Book My Show, some of the large SaaS companies, right? And then second is who are a very strong sales machine. So there I would say Policy Bazaar or Naukri.com or InfoEdge, right? These would be the companies, right, which I have a very high regard for.
And we all love Dipinder, Sanjeev, everyone. We are not poaching anyone. But yes, just for the sake of the question, uh, which current Indian entrepreneur's leadership style do you find inspiring based on whoever you have interacted with in the past?
See, when I started roughly 13 years back, that time I really was inspired by Deep Kharwa at Make My Trip and Sanjeev Bikhchandani and Hitesh Oberoi. Then in the last 13 years, India has seen a tremendous growth in the startup ecosystem. I think my highest respect would be for Dipinder Goyal at Zomato. To me, Zomato is truly the first product-based company which has unlimited scale, very similar to what we saw with Apple, Microsoft, Netflix, Google, Amazon, and Facebook.
What's the wildest, most controversial decision you have made that made everyone question your sanity but ended up paying off?
See, I would say, taking a plunge into entrepreneurship, and that too in India. Right, I went to United States as a student at a time when India was just opened up for like a liberalization of economy, and the domestic opportunities were very less. So in my time, almost everyone who was ambitious, wants to do better in life, would actually go to US. And it took me so many years to build a great career, where I was making $1 million plus roughly 14 years back. Used to be on CNBC, Fox News, ABC News every day on a TV.
Life was good.
Would hang around with Mark Zuckerberg to Larry Page and as an analyst, and I was top ranked analyst. Life was awesome. Air quality to the Silicon Valley social scene to the intellectual stimulation. It was awesome. And one day when I said I want to be entrepreneur, and that too in India, trust me, it was something everyone was in shock. Everyone was in shock, and it was not easy. And my dad even told me that I was so proud of telling my friends that my son worked with Microsoft, he works on Wall Street, look at he's come on TV, and now you are coming to India and starting a company which nobody has ever heard of. Right. So it was.
It paid off.
It absolutely it paid off.
Sandeep, we talked about multiple things. We talked about leadership. We talked about managers. We talked about ICs. What I figured out, you're very heavy on documentation. You are very heavy on core values and consistencies and principles. You have a typical Droom type where you evaluate people before hiring, and that's a binding thread between everything you do. I also figured while talking to you, you believe that soft skills are going to be the future for all the leaders and not just the hard skills. And you're also a very unorthodox, dynamic, and slightly impulsive founder. And that's something you're also working on. On that note, Sandeep, I would like to thank you a lot for your amazing conversation. And yes, we'll look forward to have you again back.
Thank you, Sandeep.